All right, I'm going to seal Bella's rock really quick. And I'm doing it at a different angle in hopes that you guys can see what UV resin looks like when it hits metallic watercolor. So there's a lot of questions about how to seal these. Basically, you need a set spray of some sort. I'll put a list up of known good ones. Depending on the resin you use, even UV resin, there's different results. Let's say that. So the only one I use is this one. So Mr. Resin UV resin is the only one I use, so it's the only one I can speak to. I know there's other less expensive brands on Amazon that I have used successfully only in a couple of occasions because they smell really strong and I can't use them. And 2-part resin, as far as that's concerned, I still would recommend using some sort of a set spray just because they're not all equal. And some might cause streaking while others won't. So what I recommend you do is do a test rock. Do something like this, where you've used a variety of different colors. And then try a few different methods, even if you want to try different sides of the rock. I always recommend, no matter what you're doing, even if it's just testing out a new base coat, do a test rock. Don't do a design that you love. Don't pour your heart into something and then seal it and find out that it's all ruined, because I went through that last summer and I wouldn't recommend that for anybody. But yeah, just do a test rock. Start with what you've got. After you determine what works and what doesn't, definitely take some recommendations, known good recommendations from people in my group. We've been doing this almost a year now. So I know a lot of us have switched to UV resin just because in Washington it's a lot easier because of our weather to just do it indoors. Although there are some people who still use spray, and there are some really good recommendations out there. So I'll make sure those are posted and pinned to the top so they're easy to find. But no further ado, let's do Bella's rock. So first of all, you'll notice I don't have gloves on. Please use gloves. I've been using this for over a year, so my technique has become very, very tight and I know exactly what I'm doing, what I shouldn't do. Basically, you need to use gloves because if you're not experienced with doing this, UV light, so any sun, anything from your window, a UV gel lamp is for nail polish is what I use to cure, what most of us use to cure, a really strong one. As soon as UV touches this resin, it will burn you. So that's not a deal breaker for me because it works so well and I know exactly how to handle it. Use gloves when you do this. And then I'll show you my method. There are several methods out there. My method works for me. I'm a little OCD when it comes to perfection, so forgive me for that. And here's one of them. So I use these really cheap brushes. They're like $60 for like $10. So they're really cheap. However, occasionally you will get some, and I'm too close to the camera, you'll get some that have bristles that pop out. So when I start, the first thing I do before I do anything is I pull on my brush. If bristles come out, I throw it away and I start with a new one. You don't want anything in it. You don't want dust or hair. So here's a new one. Works great. Okay, step one out of the way. I have my camera angled this close because I want to try and get the shimmer of when the resin hits the watercolor. Okay, so all I do is I drizzle. I don't squeeze it really hard, I just drizzle it. And I start in the middle because this stuff will flow. I start in the middle. Can you see that? Can you see that shimmer? Look at that. This is why I use UV resin. Because what you see now, this effect that you see, is what it'll look like when it's cured and dry. And when I tell you that nothing compares to a resin covering these metallic watercolors, there is no comparison. You can spray seal. We've yet to find any spray seal that actually does compare to resin. So see that shimmer? Ugh. See that? Isn't that incredible? This is why it's so addicting for me, because I get little happy tingles every time. My heart just flip-flops every time I see this. And this is why I love it so much. My husband has told me how to figure out this camera stuff, and I can't wait till he gets back so I can. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you, is that shimmer. And you can see that it flows. That's why I start in the middle. And that's why when I do this resin, I moved the camera up a little bit. That's why when I do this resin, I start in the middle and I always brush from the center out, because that's how I keep it off my fingers. So I'll show you my technique really quick. I did probably put too much for this rock, but we'll move it around. So what I do is I drizzle in the middle, and I usually do a circular motion. Got a little carried away with the sparkle. And then I take my brush and I brush in a clock, because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, obviously you do the other way. But I brush in a clockwise direction to bring the resin with my brush like this instead of down, because it's liquid. It will follow a path that you have determined for it to go, right? Just like any liquid. So if I would to brush down, you would get your drips. I brush in a circular motion around the edge of the rock, and this works for Santorini too, even though they're more flat. I go like this, and this is my constant motion. And I'm not brushing the surface. I'm not pushing down on my brush. I'm dragging the resin with my brush very gently, so I'm not interfering with the paint. I'm not touching I'm leaving, there's a surface of resin between my brush and the paint. I am just dragging the surface of the resin around to be smoother and cover, so I don't have holes. See how I'm using the light to check for gaps, to check for divots, to check for holes in my resin, and I don't have any. So this is my first step in covering a round rock or a roundish rock, right? So I have covered every bit of my rock. You can see that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it under my lamp, which is over on my desk. And I'm going to do 4 minutes, so 4 60-second cycle on my lamp. And then when I finish, it's done. That's it. I'm going to pause it for now. Okay, so while that one's drying or curing, I'm going to quickly do this one. I promised Bella that I would do them. So, same effect that you get. I really hope this translates over into video, because there's really nothing like it. So I'll try and talk less and do more on this one. So that's how I usually apply it, in a circular drizzling motion. And then I take my brush and I just pull on the top surface of my resin. I don't push down. I just gently pull the resin around. It's like tickling it almost, like if you were trying to tickle somebody's skin with a feather. That's kind of what I'm doing with the brush. And this creates a nice level surface. And if you're getting brush strokes like this, you see how it has ripples in it? That's my brush strokes. That means I don't have enough resin on my rock yet. You don't want to have brush strokes that remain after you've brushed it. So what I do then, because I know I haven't added enough, I just add a little more, and notice how I'm staying in the middle 2/3 of my rock, because it will flow over the edges, and that's how I avoid my drips. I control it from the center to the edge, and I'm still going in my clockwise circular motion. I'm not going down my edges. I save that for another layer if I want to do my sides, which if you're putting a rock outside, you definitely want to 100% coat this. If you don't, the water will eventually, the moisture, no matter where you are, will eventually seep through the rock to the top layer, and it will crumble your resin eventually. If I'm doing a round rock, I do this to the top first, and I don't drive for perfection, but I try and get it pretty good. I do the top layer first, and I do this on all my Santorinis. I do my top layer first so that my art is protected. No matter what I do, this resin will protect whatever I painted. So my top layer is protected, and then I flip it over and I do the same thing on the back, and then I do my sides, and I do a thin layer. I do it on, then I do my sides, and then I'll go back, because then I have little lines along the side where I've resined with over the edges, and I'll go back over the top again with a new layer of resin, and those lines disappear, and then I have a perfectly 100% resined rock. And if you start with too little and you have too little, it's cool. Just do what I'm doing and you just add a little bit more. You can still see my brush strokes are staying because I'm using such a little bit of an amount on this rock. And I'm doing that mainly because I have a feeling she wants to add gems and little doodads to this, which I let her do because we don't release these rocks into the wild. We don't drop these. She has her own little rock garden, and our friend who helps me with Bella has their own little rock garden, and these rocks don't go anywhere else, so there's no danger of squirrels or any wildlife trying to eat the sparkle from the gems that she likes to add. And I don't think I have any examples, but they're like those diamond painting little half circle gem thingies. So now you can see where I have an intrusive piece of dust or something right here. So I pull it off with my brush before I cure it. And then I brush over that area again to smooth the resin out. So here's my finished top coat. I have a bubble or two, but other than that it looks pretty good. And so this one is ready for the lamp. But look at how that shimmers. And these are the new pastel color shifts too, by the way, if you missed Bella's wonderful, cute little video that I posted yesterday where she tested out all the colors. With her cookie asteroid, which I think is hilarious. I love that, it's so cute. So see how I have resin on my fingers? If you do this and you don't use gloves, you need to put your rock down in a safe place quickly and go wash this off with soap and water. I always take a paper towel and rub the excess off, and then I go wash it off really quick. And I have a large bottle of hand sanitizer, just inexpensive hand sanitizer from Walmart, that I keep by my sink. It helps break up the goo, and then I wash with soap. I use Dawn dish soap, and I wash my hands in soap and water, and then I take it to the lamp. But you have to be fast, because as you're doing all of that, this is still trying to self-level, so it will eventually start to drip over the sides. And I'm going to pause now, and then I'll show you guys the finished results. Okay, we are cured. And there you go, there's the finished product. This one's a little bumpy, but like I said, we're going to do 2 coats on this one, so I kept it thin. That's how I keep from wasting resin too. Alright, there you are. Have a good day. Here they are outside in the sun. Since we have sun today, obviously the color shifts do really well in the sun. Not so great on video always, but you can see them sparkle. All right. Have a good weekend.